what happened in the first half of Season 1 in XRS. Ladies and gentlemen, the face cams are back! The face cams are back! You can see us, you can see our faces, and it's incredibly exciting. We are in the mid-season break here in Season 1 of XRS. We are all very excited. What a show we've had in the last 8 weeks. I am joined by the most important man in the league, the top boy. It is Raven West. How are you doing?
Your words flatter me, Avi. Your words flatter me. It's good to be back. It's good to be back on the podcast. It's been apologies I haven't been here for a few weeks. Life is busy. I've been doing everything else in the league. I can only promise you I'm doing all the behind the scenes stuff. But yeah, no, it's great to be back on the centre stage, shall we say? When I'm not maybe centre stage of the races after maybe a couple of weaker performances towards the end of the first half for myself. It's nice to be back on the social centre stage again. So yeah, no, it's great to be back here.
These are my ends. This is my area, isn't it?
It's your show.
A lot of people see me. Anyway, first half of the season, and of course this was the big deal. This was Avi the Cobra and Raven West coming together to make their own league. How have you thought these first 8 weeks have gone? Because it's been unreal.
I can't lie, it's been great. It's been absolutely, I've loved every second of it. I feel like, I don't even know, it's actually been surprisingly better than I thought it would have been. I thought we would have kind of hit the ground running, we would have taken off, things would have gone well. I felt like we would have had maybe, I would have felt like we had maybe a bit of a lull around about round 4 or 5. I was kind of expecting that, but that hasn't really happened. There was a small Div 2 attendance drops for 2 weeks, but then that was just genuinely people being busy. Because the next, after that in Hungary, we had 19, 18 in Hungary again. So, yeah, 4 divisions first season with just about to hit 200 people. Yeah, before we even get into this podcast, I want to say not only a thank you to obviously Avi yourself, not only thank you to all the staff, Baze, Ben, Neb, Pink, Beaked, everyone. I want to say thank you to everyone who's just been a member of XRS, all the team principals, all the stewards, all the commentators. Obviously, big shout out to Fetch on the editing front and the commentary side as well. I want to give a special shout out to him. Just every single person who's a member, whether you're a reserve, whether you're a full-time driver, whether you're trying to get involved with other things like editing, stewarding, all that kind of stuff. Even if people who sat the steward exam, who maybe didn't pass the steward exam, all those people, you're all what makes this experience as great as it is, as much as me and Avi are. Yeah, so from the bottom of my heart, thank you, because you are the ones as well making just this whole thing as special and as cool as I think it can be. So yeah, shout out to everyone who's watching this, who's in the server, who's touched the track in XRS, in any division. You all have a place in my heart somewhere. You all yeah, no, just I don't want to get too soppy and too sad, but yeah, no, it's you've made the last 4 months, last 3 months, I'm gonna say 3 months, just a lot more enjoyable for myself in terms of just day-to-day life. I'm really happy what it's become, what it is, and as I said, the community is a massive aspect of that, and yeah, without you, it wouldn't be happening. So every single person who is involved in some way in the league, even if you're just a driver, you're not just a driver, you're an instrumental part of the league. So bottom of my heart, thank you so much.
Yeah, I'd say, to follow up on that, I mean, I started league racing a year ago, and the first thing that I noticed to me was how real it felt. You know, I mean, you have the commentators, you have the team principals. It feels like a mini. I was an F1 fan before this, and it feels like a mini F1. It's something you can get kind of your hands in on. You can chat to the stewards about a penalty, for example. You can chat to the other drivers about how they're feeling about these races, stuff like that. And I'm so happy to imagine that maybe we're doing this for some new drivers coming into the scene. Of course, a lot of the drivers that did come in at the start, we knew them, which was already quite nice to make a little family that we've had. But the reach we've had in the last certainly the last 2 months has been unreal. We've got a lot of new names, a lot of new faces. And I'm so glad to welcome them into the little XRS family. It's a lovely little place.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, the community in XRS is one thing that I think is just is above most leagues. Like there's so, even when there's disagreements and there's arguments, like people tend to keep it quite like a very respectable level. Like there honestly isn't anything I would change about the league at all right now. Like there's no. Yeah. Because in other leagues that I've been involved in, I won't name any specifics. There's always been kind of like, not flaws, but there's been things that I would change or do differently, or just like if I could just wave a wand and just change them like immediately, as like even the culture in some set aspects of things. That doesn't exist in XRS at all. Like it's just. It's just, I don't want to call it perfect because very few things are, but in terms of what I envisioned from a league and what I want from, because it's like most of the stuff I do comes from what I want from a racing league experience. Like I've mentioned it a few times in the past. I'll talk about it here. Just again, I'll say it as one big thing here. My dream as a little kid was to be a racing driver. Never would grow up in any sort of position financially to even get close to that. Never been privileged enough to do that. And I found league racing about just over a year ago now. I think it's a year and coming up to a year and a half. And it's kind of been. It's been my way of tapping into that kind of childhood dream a little bit, and so with that in mind, I go into XRS being like, right, so other people who maybe are in a similar situation to me, what do they want? What would I want? Well, I want it to feel, as you said, Avi, as real as possible. It's just all the blocks have fallen into place beautifully. Like I said, I feel like I do feel like I've tapped in as close to probably that dream I'm ever going to get. And like I said, you guys all watching this, all the guys in the XRS server, Avi, yourself specifically, all you have made that as possible as I have. I've given the platform, and you guys have just ran with it. It's been absolutely incredible. So and obviously me as myself as a racer in the league, I feel like that I push myself in week out. I'm trying to work on technique, on my brake inputs, my throttle inputs, my steering inputs, these kind of things. I work on setups. Even just sitting talking to other people about racing from a more personal standpoint. We're not talking about other people's races. We're talking about our drives, our performances, different corners we had and stuff. And I remember watching F1 races, and you'll see F1 drivers at the end of races talking about. You'll see them doing hand signals and stuff as they talk about incidences, and then they're like, "Oh, this person moved over." The fact I can do that as well, even just these I get these moments every now and again where I feel like a racing driver. I know it's only sim racing, but I feel like a racing driver. And this community has given me that, and so that's why I'm just so grateful and why it means so much to me.
Yeah, of course. But moving on a bit more into depth, and before we start, we've got to hold our hands up because the niceness is over. I've talked about this quite a bit. I talked about this podcast. I bigged it up. Sometimes me and Raven can get very opinionated, but we often hold ourselves back. This is where we start to get honest, because it has been a lot of ups, a lot of downs for a lot of teams. And if you watched the predictions video, which I highly suggest you watch before we inevitably react to them at the end of the season, we were very, as far as I remember, I don't remember very many of them, but as far as I remember, we were very wrong about a lot of the things that happened this season. Been a lot of ups, there has been a lot of downs, like I said. But that is racing, that is how it is. You can never always, win. You can only be one winner. We're going to be chatting about that. We're going to be chatting about what all the teams have been doing. We're going to start with the fact that it is mid-season. So we're mid-season break. This means that we've hit the first transfer window. This means that teams can swap their drivers. They can buy new ones from the reserves. And it's a fantastic little time. It's the first window we've had in XRS. Only 2 drivers' contracts run out at this point. The first one being Tim in Haas. Not the most incredible driver as I've seen this season. And looking at his results, I think he's on about 8 points, I think. As far as we know, he's not been re-signed. Haas have still got that free seat. Do you see him getting re-signed, realistically?
No, probably not. I feel like I don't feel like it's clicked for Tim in the first half. He has got his reasons. He's been very vocal about his reasons why certain things haven't clicked. But I feel like from both a team principal myself, from that perspective, and also just from an outside perspective, the reasons are here and there. Not Tim specifically, anyone's. Like people quite often, 90% of the time, people will have a very valid reason why either result didn't go well or a batch of races didn't go well. But ultimately, from a team principal's point of view, the points tally is all they're really caring about. In terms, obviously they care about their drivers, they care about their well-being, they care about the reason why things don't go well, the reason why things go right. But if the consistency is not scoring good points, you say 8 points in I don't know how many, like 8 available races, shall we say? That's 1 point a race at best. You know what I mean? And that's just. And I don't think he's attended every race. Fair play to him on that one. You know what I mean? Like, so his points per race won't be 1. It'll be slightly higher than that, but even still, I mean, Haas now are sitting 2 points behind Aston Martin, in Haas P9 and Aston Martin P8. They need, even if they had someone who would score, shall we say, the average of say 20 points, they would be P7 right now. So I think Ben is going to be looking at that T4 seat, that Div 4 seat, and he's going to be looking at an improvement. I think he just needs more points. That's the bottom line.
Yeah, I think another thing that really shows about Tim, unfortunately, is the fact that Kalik has been doing quite well. Of course, his performance in Hungary was unbelievable. Got a P2 in China as well. Haas, looking at the individual constructors, Div 4, they are 1 point behind AlphaTauri, who are a team that are much, much bigger. So in order to keep that fight going, we might be looking at replacement. The other man I want to talk about is a bit more on a positive note, but I'm going to go on a bit of a rant on this one. Boomboy. Boomboy's contract ran out for Aston Martin in Division 2. He has, as far as I know, been offered a seat back. He decided not to take it and to go to AlphaTauri. Actually, what are your opinions on that? Because I have my opinions on that, but what are your opinions on that move?
It's interesting. It's certainly interesting. I feel like, from a driver perspective, it's a good move. Yeah, you're going from a team that's, as we said a second ago, that's 8th to a team that's 4th, fighting for 3rd, and has been swapping with another team that we'll talk plenty about later. There's been a big upgrade in terms of team dynamic. You go from a team that's fighting the bottom half to a team that's fighting in the top half. You can only imagine that there'll be a reason why AlphaTauri will be higher up than Aston Martin, and Boomboy will be able to tap into those reasons. Obviously, he's performing well enough to get noticed by that team. I feel like, from a Tauri perspective, they're not getting a driver that's polished as they need it to be to fight for the top 3 places in the overall. I feel like Tauri do have some work with Boomboy. I feel like there's a couple of things that need to be ironed out in his race plan, shall we say. Not so much strategy itself, but like your view on a race as a whole. There's a few techniques to work out. There's a few management skills to work out. So Tauri do have a job in developing that driver. But I feel like the fact that they've been able to get him at just base value because his contract ran out, good bit of business. If they can unlock those kind of, if they can find the bridges if they can build his bridges, should I say, in the gaps in his races, that's maybe holding it back from a result or two here and there, then I feel like then it's going to be a very, very strong driver signing in the end. But both Boomboy and Tauri are going to need to work on that transfer to make it what they need Boomboy to be, because like right now Boomboy's sitting 7th in the standings. Tauri are and to be ahead, he's ahead of the other Tauri driver in Div 2. Actually, they haven't got another driver in Div 2 from what I can see.
Yeah, Raiko was just signed.
Yeah. So, yes, of course. So, tiny new Div 2. Very interesting to see. Boomboy sitting in 7th. He will need to try and... He's currently 11 points behind Kino, 12 behind Dodo, 13 behind Squig. Those kind of 14 behind Koi, actually. I've just realised that's a very close 3rd to 6th there in the Div 2 standings. For him to introduce himself into that fight, there's some work to be done. But there's no reason why it can't be done. No reason why it can't happen.
I would see, especially for a new league like this, I think that naturally you develop that loyalty to your first team. And I think that if he wanted to go down the loyalty route, he would stay with Aston. If he was looking for more... I say selfish reason, but for a driver point of view, going to AlphaTauri is a good shout. It's a bigger team. It's a more developed team. They're doing far better overall. And what I would say about them is what I'm looking at actually, and what I've heard about Under the Mines is Aston Martin. They weren't really pushing him from what he's been talking about. Apparently, that There hasn't been many setup discussions, strategy discussions, and stuff that a team should really be having prepared for their team. And actually, the second he told that to me, it brought me back to the old saying my dad used to say when he wanted me to do my homework and stuff like that. That if you have a seed and you want the flower to grow into a massive big flower, you have to give it lots of things: water, plant food, sunlight, all this and that. If you give it some of those things, then fine, it will grow, but it won't be as big as it can be. If Aston Martin are giving their drivers, because Cajun's clearly on it. He's signing his team. He's got, a believe, a full team. If not, of course, he's got a seat now because of Boom Boy. But he's replacing those drivers. He seems to be on it. He's an active TP. That's fine. That's giving them water and sunlight and stuff like that. He's not giving them the carbon dioxide or the plant food. He needs to be giving them strategies and setups and stuff like that. And I appreciate that it's a smaller team, but you need to be working hard. Because if Boom Boy felt that he wasn't getting enough from that team, that he was able to break that loyalty of his first team to move over somewhere else, it could be worrying for Aston Martin. Because not only that, it's arguably their best driver as well that's gone. Which could be very detrimental to their points income as well. In terms of Raiko, I know him and Boom Boy were teammates in KRL, so that's potentially a bit of companionship, bit of a relationship there that they could work well together. And obviously AlphaTauri are in probably the closest battle in the OCC we're going to see the whole way through. I mean, maybe obviously the battle for P5 is very close as well. But in terms of hierarchy, I mean, it seems like, especially in the signing announcements chat, we've been seeing that Dodo and Matt have been taking a few shots at each other, which is quite exciting to see. Boom Boy is a signing that could potentially give them the edge, I do believe. That's what I think.
Yeah, it's in a similar vein to your father's flower analogy. I've always used the fire one. Fire needs three things: it needs oxygen, it needs fuel, and it needs heat.
There you go. Yeah.
And if you take away one of those things, the fire extinguishes. And you need to add to those to make the fire grow. So exactly in the same vein. If he wasn't getting the resource, I mean, like I said, there's a reason why Tari are fourth. There's a reason why Aston are eighth. Those reasons we won't know specifically. Obviously, not being in part of the teams ourselves, but from like I said, from the driver perspective, he's going to a team that's 4 places, like double the position, shall we say, in terms of percentile on the table. And you said selfish. The best drivers need to have a degree of selfish. They need to look after themselves. I'll point to Casper coming over from, because he, as many people will know, in KRL, which is kind of where XRS was born from. He was a AlphaTauri driver for many seasons. And then there was obviously a rivalry between AlphaTauri and Ferrari. He did come over to Ferrari, which was, shall we say, a controversial move to some because of the rivalry and all that stuff. But I mean, it's been the best thing that's happened to Casper, because we can all see his performances and how he's driving and his pace now. It's that selfishness. Without that selfishness, he would probably still be at AlphaTauri. He wouldn't be performing the same way he would. He just wouldn't be. He wouldn't be the same driver he is now. Not to blow smoke up myself, of course, but the statistics just point to that. You know what I mean? Like, he joined Ferrari and his performances just elevated to another level. So. That selfishness is what you need to push yourself as a driver as well.
One thing, and a following trend, because I'm going to go through a lot of all the contracts that we've seen, the transfers that we've seen this window. A lot of what we've seen is a lot of what I spoke about in the China podcast, which you were there. I think it was China, where we're seeing, and the context was Williams in Division 4, where they're performing fantastically. They're performing better than where Williams should be performing. And the worry with that is that if Williams can't now match the drivers will get taken. We've seen that happen. We'll talk about that shortly. And I think that's what we're beginning to see here with Boom Boy, a driver that is outperforming Aston Martin, and he's now been taken to a bigger team. You know what I mean? My next one that I'm going to talk about follows that trend. Coy to McLaren. And not only just Coy to McLaren, of course, that is a transfer, different to Boom Boy's. Boom Boy's contract ran out, so he was considered a reserve. Coy, on the other hand, was contracted to Alpine, a team that's currently sat in last in the OCC, and then he was bought out by McLaren for 120 million. At the time, the most expensive signing we had in XRS. Another example, I think Coy is probably Alpine's best driver. I think he is Alpine's best driver. He's now been taken. I mean, I appreciate in this context, at least Aston Martin have got the disadvantage because I think they even get paid for him. At least Alpine got paid for Coy to be taken. What do you think about him going to McLaren, though? Because that's the second biggest team. Has he got the performances to equal that?
I mean, I'm just checking now as well. You are right. Koyi is Alpine's most fruitful point scorer.
Yeah.
Across all divisions. But yeah, to be honest, I don't know if it was the best signing that McLaren could have made. I'll be brutally honest.
And let's not forget, by the way, because obviously Millard was the TP at the start. This is Blake, and this is Blake's first. Well, I mean, I say Tom. This is Blake's proper first big decision for his team. So this is gonna be very what's the backgroundy for like what McLaren's looking at in long term. But go on.
McLaren are a team that's very secure in second.
Yeah.
They have got the threat of two teams in third and fourth closing up on them. Their ambition is to fight for P1. I just don't know if Koyi is the driver to do that. And I have my reasons, of course, and I feel like Koyi's a very good support driver. I feel he's very aggressive. He's very ERS usage. He's very dive every corner. He's a really good person to have in your corner. I brought him into the league because he was my teammate in GRL start of season 4 in GRL, and he was exactly that. He was a very, very good disruptor of other people. So when he's your teammate, he doesn't have that kind of impact on you of being this kind of like torment almost on other drivers. We're sharing a track with Koyi. At any point, like he's not going to sit and wait for a move. He's not going to bide his time. He's not going to pick his moment. He's going to find a moment. His moment is the next corner, and it's going to be up to you to deal with what he chooses is now a racing opportunity.
Yeah.
That's really good as a second driver quality because he can kind of be that agent of chaos. The problem McLaren have is that they need him to be that lead driver. The lead driver needs to be someone who has a bit more management, who has the ability to see out races, not get a 10-second penalty at the start of a race and take out 2 Hasses and lose your first win. Like these are qualities that a lead driver who is going to McLaren need right now, especially in that Div 2. They need that lead driver to kind of like take the lead, take the reins, push the points forward. And I just don't know if Koyi's that guy. Naturally in his drive, in how he drives. Like like I say, he's very aggressive. He's a relentless antagonist, I call him. But he's I just feel like that for Koyi specifically, I think he needs a strong teammate to lead the way, and then let Koyi do his Koyi things, which is like Koyi with someone being in P2 or P3, and then Koyi being that guy's teammate in the position behind is a perfect position. Or even Koyi being in second and the teammate being a few places behind. Koyi would just cause the distractions to the drivers, slow them down, dive them, get in amongst the mix, and kind of like upset their race pace and their lap times. And Koyi has the responsibility to kind of like be that flagship driver now. He's 120 mil. He's a lot of money. He has that pressure almost as well. I think he can handle the pressure specifically in terms of he's not going to fumble under it. But I just don't know if him as a person fits the role that McLaren need him to be. For what they're aiming for. You know what I mean?
And I think that it's obviously throughout the entire season, obviously McLaren have taken a lot of hits. Teshubi and Millard being 2 very, very big ones. Division 2 has always been very much of a weak spot. Of course, they started the season with Nick and Fetch. Neither of them performed. Now, of course, they've got Nick and Koyi. Koyi's currently 4 times the point that Nick has got, and Nick was in the McLaren. Nick's not been on the pace. He's been definitely struggling. His focus has definitely not been on the races, and I don't know if they expect him to be the second role here, because Koyi, who's third in the championship, so he is up there.
Yeah.
But your points show better than mine. I've never raced the guy. But I did commentate his race, torpedoing into turn 1 without much of a care. I mean, he changed his line, which caused the collision. It's not like it was just an accidental thing. Hence the 10-second penalty on lap 1, which you don't often see. I hear that.
He was avoiding rear-ending the other Haas. Like he dipped a wheel in the grass, trying to find like an angle, opening the corner up. Messed his braking point up, and then it was rear end OJ or dive out the way, and then he took out Aya on his way past, and then still went deep into the corner and kind of knocked OJ wide of turn 1, which is why it was like a double, and then cost Aya I think he was down to 9th, 10th when he rejoined, and OJ lost 2-3 places, I think, from the start. So
Yeah.
But yeah, and just on Nick. Nick's only done 4 out of 8 races. I know on a personal note he's been suffering from an injury in real life, which has affected his sporting life. And as an athlete myself, I sympathise a lot with the toll that takes on a person's mental health, their motivation for the rest of the things in their life. So Nick is his. I mean, what's his points per race? I'm trying to find it here. 7 points per race. So if he was to do those other 4 races, he would definitely be a lot more up there. He would probably be sitting around about 7th, 8th.
Yeah.
In the standings right now, if he'd done those races at the same level he's been doing. But again, that still puts him as the second driver to Koyi, and I just don't think Koyi. Like I said, I don't think Koyi is. I don't want to say the word reliable because it's almost like a cruel word to use. But I just don't think Koyi is reliable in his management of a race to be the leader of the division team. He's a perfect. I don't even say Bottas because Bottas was a very different type of teammate. He's just that agent of chaos. Like he just gets his nose away, and he just having him not disrupting your race and everyone else's is great.
Yeah.
But he needs to be the one to be actually scoring the points himself and not losing 2 positions at the end of the race because he's burnt all his battery slowing people down in lap 10. So
yeah, I hear that. Next one I want to go into, going from very expensive signings to on the cheaper side, Vlad. Now, there's been a serious cycle of chaos here going on in Division 4. We've got 3 teams involved, Alfa Romeo, Ferrari, and Williams. And the first chaos to happen was Vlad getting announced. He would go down to what was considered the sister team. He was demoted to... I say demoted, but I mean, if you're treating it like a sister team, Vlad was moved across to Alfa Romeo from being the Ferrari seat. Not only being the Ferrari seat, but if you want to follow, like you said, from KRL, the reigning champion taken down. It's a hard way to think of it like that. Vlad, who won KRL season relatively solidly. He didn't have the most incredible challenge. Liam obviously was charging up behind him, but it was at that point too late. Vlad is currently sat 7th in the championship and crucially behind Dan. It's not been an easy season for Vlad. Moving to Alfa Romeo, I think it's tricky because it's hard to know where his kind of mindset is. I really like Vlad as a guy. I think he's very nice, but obviously, with that sister kind of helping teammate, thing, obviously there's no collusion. It's fantastic. The relationship between Ferrari and Alfa Romeo. Alfa Romeo gets the support from a big team. The big team get an area, Ferrari being to put their drivers that maybe they're not feeling to be in that 2 seat. You only get 2 seats in per division. You know what I mean? And when you really think about that, when you think deep into it, that's only 2 people you need to be performing all the time. And maybe Vlad would perform better in Alfa Romeo. Less stress. And he's a young guy. So it's maybe less stress on him, knowing that he doesn't have to perform to the level that maybe we expected him to be. But what about you? I mean, you're the one that sold him, so we'll get the right answer here from you.
So yeah, I feel like Vlad had a very tough start to the season. He really did, and there was a lot of factors to it. But for me, it was a matter of I wanted to, because I looked at my team, and with all the will in the world, Div 4 was my weakest division in terms of point scoring, performances, everything else in between. And I wanted to do something mid-season to change that. And it was both Dan and Vlad could have been the one to go across. I felt like Vlad was feeling the pressure a bit more. Dan seemed to be slightly better in his mentality than Vlad had been, especially over the last weekend. I mean, especially after the Monza incident that Vlad had on lap 1, I could just tell from his reaction, I won't go into too many specifics, but I could just tell from his reaction to that incident that he was just feeling that pressure. And it's not even so much that like I'm stacking pressure on the drivers. I do expect my drivers to perform. There is when the team's leading the overall constructors and your division is the weakest of the 4, there's a pressure there. When you're the reigning champion, quote unquote, from the last season that most of the drivers shared, there's a pressure from there. I do expect my drivers to perform. There is a pressure from there. There's a lot of external factors that come in to kind of be like this amalgamation of pressure. And what I wanted Vlad to have a a place where he can kind of refine his form. If you look at his, like, the season before he won the title in KRL, so KRL season 3, he came over towards the end of the season from Haas.
Yep. Yeah.
We did a bit of work together. He built up some momentum, and then he hit season 4 strong. He lost that momentum for the start of the season and hasn't really been able to find it again. So I want him to go to a team that really needed a Div 4 driver, because as well as myself, my team, and Ferrari being the weakest in Div 4, Alfa Romeo were suffering the same fate. I wanted to kind of inject that position into Alfa Romeo. I wanted Vlad to have the ability to focus on himself. I kind of like how when Leicester won the Premier League, they'd won like 4 or 5 games in a row at the end of the season before to pull them out the relegation battle, and it kind of just sets that early warning shot and build that momentum up. You can use the end of a season to build your momentum into the next one. If I see Vlad picking that momentum back up, we could see him back in the Ferrari seat next season. Maybe he needs a season, maybe he needs a season and a half. Maybe he needs season 2. He needs to spend at Alfa Romeo as well. He will also have free reign of his own seat. Maybe he goes to Alfa. It doesn't work out for him, and I know for a fact. I'm gonna drop the scoop here. I know for a fact that Blake has turned around to Vlad and said the seat is there if you want it.
Wow.
As the McLaren driver, as the McLaren TP. So I know that Vlad has. I mean, like I said, champion last season in KRL. We all know what he can do. There's not many places Vlad's gonna not get a seat if he asks for it. So he will have complete free agency over his move as well. It just alleviates the pressure, lets him refine his form, refine his momentum, build it back up again, and we'll see where he's sitting next season. And then we'll talk about his replacement very soon. But in terms of myself, I've been able to strengthen my lineup, but also I feel like it's a really healthy environment for Vlad to kind of just refine himself, remind himself of who he is, where he hasn't got the pressure that he very clearly was feeling after Monza, where like the Monza result just didn't go his way. He had a decent qualifying and then was in an instant lap 1 and DNF'd, and he was just, for lack of a better word, quite distraught about what has been happening. And some of the things he was saying, he was always anticipating being just completely removed from the Ferrari circle, from the greater Ferrari family, of course, of the Alfa Romeo relationship we have. But he's still on the Ferrari server. He's still got access to all the Ferrari resources. He just needs to find his feet again as a driver, find himself again as a driver. Yeah.
And as you touch on that, I think that it kind of relates back to what we spoke about with Boom Boy and the selfishness of going to a big team. If Vlad he's gone to Alfa Romeo, I think that's a very good move for him. Like you said, to find his feet again and to find his previous form that we've seen him have. I think that if he's had an offer from McLaren to potentially go next season, it would be, because he's obviously signed until the end of season 2, so maybe, so it would be the one after that. It would be interesting to see whether he opts to go and break out the Ferrari circle on his own accord, go to the underdog team, the underdogs that are trying to fight for the title, because realistically, for McLaren are the next ones to do it, I imagine, looking at the forms right now, or wait, work on himself, and push for the Ferrari seat again, who are currently winning the OCC. It'll be very interesting to see how he feels his form will be, in combination with where it actually will be. You know what I mean? Because like you said, he probably will get offers from other teams if he wanted to.
I mean, he was supposed to go. He was at the start of the season. He told me that he's getting offers from Red Bull for a move, and he was interested in that. Obviously, Red Bull have not performed how effing anyone expected them to.
Yeah.
So maybe that's changed his mind a bit, but yeah, he walks into a lot of places, ladders, and goes into that seat.
On the other side of the garage, in order to replace the Ferrari seat, of course, Raven West has never done anything without some back planning. There's never been something else going on in the background that he's planning. In the replacement of the seat is one of the big boys, one of the Williams boys, and this is exactly what I said would happen. Exactly the same as I said would happen with Boom Boy. When the small teams, and Corey as well, the small teams get their good drivers stolen. This is where the small teams need to be working with their drivers to try and keep that loyalty. Charlie has been stolen. The 2-time winner in Division 4, I believe. He is gone over to the red side. He's been bought for now currently the most expensive transfer, 135 million bought from Williams. Now, obviously, this is what it tells us. So, obviously, now Alpine have been completely removed of debt. They're currently sat on 102 million. So they were just minorly in debt. Williams weren't. Williams were the only kind of like smaller team that weren't actually in a bad spot. They've been obviously paid an enormous amount for Charlie. They're currently sat on 233 million, which puts them second most rich team following McLaren. Big signing. The worry here, and I'm not going to focus just on Charlie because we know what Charlie can do. Charlie has proved himself in a team that is lower down. I can't wait to see what he does in a team that is bigger in Ferrari. I'm actually going to turn the focus to the other side of the garage. There hasn't really been a first and second driver kind of mentality, I don't think, in Division 4 for Ferrari, especially since the two drivers are so close together. You might begin to see that when it's closest to the end of the season, when there's a title being fought, you might begin to see that split if there's a points gap is big, but it's neither of those things. However, Dan has gone from, currently speaking, having more points than Vlad, outperforming Vlad, just minorly. His teammate will now be someone who is completely outperforming him. What is the focus for Ferrari? Do they believe that Charlie, who is currently sat, and I'm just going to quickly check, currently sat at 52 points behind Liam. Dan is 82 points behind Liam. So realistically, if Dan's going to win the title, he's going to have to bring some fire. I think if Ferrari want to aim for the Division 4 title, Charlie would be their best bet. Will the mentalities in Ferrari change now that they have a potentially faster driver under their wing?
We'll have to see. I'm not someone who is quick to assign first and second driver roles.
Yeah.
But I feel like I'm not gonna. Okay, I'll put it this way. There will be a priority on Charlie, him being the closer one. But yeah, I'm not going to be asking Dan to throw away his races for the sake of Charlie's.
No, yes.
Which is what you might see. Like there's definitely been cases in the past where either myself being a second driver role or other people in the second driver role, I've requested, or I've done and like as an engineer I've requested certain things, or I've done something myself as a driver that throws my own race to the wind but can help my teammate or help the other driver on the grid. I'm not going to be doing it. It's not going to be to that extreme extent, but there's definitely going to be a priority on Charlie, trying to push him up now a bit more. I want Dan to help Charlie push and fight, to bring the fight to Liam. And also, I know for a fact that in both Charlie and Dan now want to improve their overall constructor fight. Obviously, Ferrari sitting third right now. They are 67 points behind Williams
in the constructors fight.
And McLaren are 20 points ahead of Williams, so 87 points behind P1, 67 behind P2. I just know that both, from what Charlie's been messaging me already, and Dan from the start of the season, both those boys want to be in a better position. Charlie's obviously gone from a team that's second in the constructors to third in the constructors, but obviously better in the overall. He will want to at least regain his constructors position for sure. Both drivers will have to be working towards a team. I'm going to do what I can with Charlie, see if we can bring the fight to Liam. Realistically, Liam bangs the next 3 races, it might be out of reach anyway. So it'll just be then focused on constructors. But either way, it's a stronger lineup for myself. Both boys, as every driver in my team is expected to do, put the team first.
I think that's completely fair. I think it's going to be very interesting to see long-term what happens. Now, you might be thinking in your head, oh, well, what have you done to Williams? You've just wrecked Williams. Williams now got a flat spot in one of their tyres. Ferrari going to catch them easily? No. Stein came back with an absolute storm with the return of Cranks, who's come through, been signed for the discount amount, actually, because he was a reserve. He got signed with the discount amount as well, despite having so much money from what Ferrari paid them. And for 2 seasons as well. I think that was one of the best comebacks they could have done. I think that's the best person they could have signed for sure. Cranks, we've seen him race. He did 1 race in XRS. He's been around. He's a character around the league that people chat to. But he's only raced in 1 race. He reserved in Portugal and he won it. That was a big comeback, and it's going to make Ferrari's charge and McLaren's defense, I think, a lot more difficult. Could Cranks, do you think, potentially be a name to look out for at the front of that pack? Because I for sure do.
Yeah, I think Stein has recovered fantastically from losing a big driver, a big flagship point scorer.
Yeah.
He's not only got him cheap, which building long-term financial strength and security, which is something that I have done, which has given me the fortunate position where I can just, whenever I want a driver and I need to fix something, I can throw money at them. Yeah. I remember when I started a negotiation with Stein, he said, "There's no way I'm selling." And then I put some numbers in the chat, and the tune very quickly changed. And I mean, Avi, you probably can tell me quicker than I'll be able to find it out, but what's the current budget on Ferrari now after that signing?
169.
Yeah, so full driver lineup, 169 million, and we still have a bunch of prize money coming in at the end of the season. Yeah, it's that long-term strength that I have and the ability. I mean, realistically, I can go and do that technically 2 more times, because I'd have the seller driver to open up the seat. I could do that 2 more times and throw that money around at drivers if I really wanted to, and still be in the green. Stein's obviously seen that, being on the other end of it, shall we say, and he's obviously been very, very, very adept and smart with it, and thinking, you know what, I'm not going to just shall we say, piss all this money away in one spending. I'm going to be smart. I'm going to build long-term success. When contracts start clearing up end of the season, and in season 2, I think Williams are going to be in a really healthy position to bring them some good names. He's a great TP. He's fantastic for these kind of reasons, and it's very, very smart business from Stein. And if Cranks is turning up to more races and doing like he did in Portugal, then it's going to be an issue to try and catch them. So he's cashed in while he can. He's got a probably equally good driver. He's got his money up, and he's got his drivers at the exact same level. So what a man! I can't hate him for it. What a recovery! Yeah,
completely agree. Looking a little bit further around, I mean, actually, before we finish that part, I want to have a little talk about Alpine, because Alpine have got a lot of money. You've said there's really good management there by Stein, saving that money, like I said, on 233 mil. Beeked and Alpine are on 102 mil. They've still got 2 drivers to sign, one in Division 1, one in Division 2. Of course, replacing Koi and getting that second driver for Division 1. There has been talks of him potentially dropping Conor Barry due to not attending races. I think that's completely justified. What is Alpine's step forward? They're currently last in the OCC. They had a horrible start, unfortunately under the wing of Boldy, who's moved on to just be a driver. Trying to recover that is going to be very difficult. Haas have picked it up, and they're now 100 points ahead of Alpine. It's going to be a difficult one. He's going to have to bring something out. What do you think?
I think Beek needs to be keeping a very close eye on new people coming in. I feel like Beek needs one good signing to really kind of a regular race winner. We need to go for the lineup. Peekaboo and Sergio Gamir in Div 4. I don't see any of them two winning a race anytime soon. I see consistent top 10s if things go well for them, but I don't see them winning races. Division 3, obviously Simonex and Neek. I can see Neek maybe getting up there.
Yeah,
but Simonex less so. Attendance-wise as well, hasn't been great from Simonex. Div 2, obviously they've lost Koyi now. And
never got Conehead.
FaZe Dom or Conehead, very, very good driver on his day. I feel like similar to Boomboy, needs to work on the management side of things a little bit. But 6 races, 7 points per race. Where is it as well? 1 podium, very solid, 44 points. I feel like if he can find a bit more rhythm, a bit more momentum, then it's kind of good. But again, sitting P10 in the championship, and then Div 1, of course, Conor Barry and who's the other one?
No one. That's the gap.
Yeah. So, I think maybe looking at someone like Jamie, in that Alpha seat. I know from a fact Cintium has come into the league now. If he becomes a regular racer, then that he will be a great signing. I would even if Beek's listening to this right now, Cintium is still going to be reserve value, sir. Consider it.
You will be, yeah.
Consider it.
There's always something to look out for there's always something to look at for teams that maybe have less budget, because obviously it's a risk bringing in people that you don't know about. Might not attend races, might just burn it off, you know what I mean, that kind of stuff. That's someone that not only you trust, but Alpine haven't got the same. It will be a bit of a push. They've got 102 mil with 2 seats left, so there will probably be a dip into debt unless they use a reserve. So it's definitely going to take a bit of management for Beat to revive that, and that's just assuming that they're able to fill the seats. That's not catching Haas. So it's going to be a really difficult push for for Alpine, I should say, to clean up. But I believe they can do it. It's a long-term push. It's just one season, you know what I mean? A lot of teams, as you can tell from their performances this season and what they're planning, what they're doing, they're preparing for future seasons. It's not just about winning right now. It's about winning in the future. Another team, obviously, we talked about Williams as well, because they've got a lot of money and their management is very good. They've got 2 seats to sign, both of them in Division 3. The worry with both of them being in the same division means you're going to have to find someone for the same division twice. There are a few big names, or potential names, I should say. Of course, we've had Caddy, we've had Skiz turning up for a lot of races. Benjo, of course, was signed for Aston Martin to start the season. The problem that Williams will have, who are currently sat in P5 in the OCC, and we'll talk about this a little bit more in a minute, but do they have someone that can live up to a P5 in the? Can they bring someone in that could fight a Mercedes and a Red Bull? Is the worry? Because naturally, what do you expect? The best drivers have seats. Drivers that are reserves for a reason. Maybe they're new, but they haven't got themselves a seat. So you will be on the back foot slightly. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, it might even be a strategy for the TPs to start scouting other leagues and trying to find a driver who isn't known to the XRS ones, bring them in and sign them for cheap, and then they have that injection, and that driver will also have the loyalty to that team principal as the one who brought them into the league. Because drivers like Sintium, for example, I'll use him because he's my current DRL teammate. Very good driver. I feel like someone like him hasn't got any sort of loyalties right now to anyone other than maybe me, for example. And obviously my seats are completely filled in Ferrari, so he's kind of like an open reign. He's looking for somewhere for a home to be made, you know what I mean? And I feel like, I certainly feel like that someone like him coming into that Alpine seat will definitely be just an injection that they need. Him coming into that Williams seat will be an injection they need. Him coming into that Red Bull seat will be an injection they need. That Aston seat. I feel like Haas have drivers like Pau and Oliver in Div 1 who are incredible front runners. I think they have a few, like Kalik can pull up a result. He went 18 to second in China after he crashed in the sprint. He obviously walked away from everyone in the wet in Hungary. He clearly can do it when things don't go wrong. So Haas have those kind of drivers to push them through, which is why they're now only 2 points behind Aston. And Alpine haven't got that. They need those kind of drivers. So maybe Duke needs to start getting a bit more savvy with trying to find people from outside the league. Maybe he needs to be keeping a closer eye on KRL, seeing who's doing well in there. Maybe he needs to find other leagues. Like I know POR that is a league that's very big. I know that GRL is a league that's very big. I know that EXA is a league that's very big. The Phoenix Racing League. There's all these leagues that are there. There's FOR. There's TRC even. These kind of leagues that. CRS, obviously, Nick and Dodo's league. They'll be bringing in people that aren't members of XRS. He needs to be kind of maybe start scouting these leagues and trying to find people who can push up these front seats. So it's gonna be very interesting to see what they can do in the future. But they do need to make some smart plays. Yeah.
And the final signing we've had so far in the short time we've had in this window, but it's been going crazy even from the get-go. Armin in Red Bull. I do not think that was a good signing at all. I think that was arguably one of the worst things they could have done. Armin as a guy,
big words.
He's a quick guy. I've raced him in TRC. Cool, very nice. I think that him as a driver is not the problem. Signing Armin is completely fine. Everything that Red Bull brought into it was rubbish, and I will tell you exactly why now. First of all, Red Bull are now 50 million in debt. They are second most in debt of Aston Martin. Aston Martin are in a bit of a pickle, I won't lie. I'm sure I'm surprised I mentioned that already. Red Bull are in a big pickle in terms of money and position in the OCC. It's not as if they're in this situation, but their drivers are performing and it'll be made up at the end of the season. They're 7th, and we thought they would be fighting Ferrari, and they're half the points of Ferrari. It has been one of the worst seasons for a team I think we could have had, and I'm amazed it was Red Bull, because I rate Banjo and I rate Neb. They're two fantastic drivers, very active. Neb's an admin for a reason, you know. Banjo's a fantastic team principal for a reason. Obviously, time restraints in his real life stopped him from doing that. I would never have guessed it would be Red Bull that would have these kind of struggles. Signing Armin was an awful idea, because it's not only put Red Bull in such a debt that they might not even be able to repay very easily next season. Another point, they've signed Armin for the end of this season. It's not as if they're going to get repaid. The end of this season is in 8 races. They've put themselves 50 mil in debt for 8 races. Third point, Neb paid absolutely no attention to these discounts. Notice, by the way, if you didn't know, if you're wondering what the yellow numbers next to the values are, during this mid-season break, all reserves are 15% off, which allows teams to get down and dirty into these reserves and bring up some of the drivers that could potentially be big. He's gone into that and thought, you know what, this is perfect. This is perfect for my team. I can save some money. He in the contract, it was small, but I noticed it. Armin was reduced. Well, he's valued at 74. Had a pretty solid race in Hungary. Battled Malachi, who's quite a big name the entire race. Fair play to him. Stood out. I enjoyed commentating his race. 74 mil. 15% of that is 63 mil. It was just small, but in the contract, Neb wrote 66. Is he paying attention? Is he paying attention to who he's signing? Because I gave him the benefit of the doubt. I charged him for 63, obviously not 66. But he's not even paying attention to the people he's signing. In the contract form, he's writing the wrong numbers. He's signing them for 1 season, 8 races, and going 50 million in debt. With a team that realistically, right now, how they're performing, is not going to pay that back. Red Bull are on the highway to being a backmarker team. It's going terribly. They're fighting Williams, who started with half their budget. And I cannot believe that it's Red Bull of all these teams. I am worried for that team. And I can't stress enough that I'm surprised it's the team that's run by Banjo and Neb. But that's my thoughts. Yeah. Armin is a guy, I was going to point out, by the way, Armin is a guy, great signing. Like, he was a good driver. He was a good, solid midfield driver. He might break into the top 5 a couple of races on a day, fine. But the way they've signed him, 1 season and the wrong value, what does that reflect, other than not caring?
It reflects poor future planning, I feel.
Yes.
Because you got to remember, 50 mil in debt means 75 mil will be taken off their prize money at the end of the season.
Yeah, with
that's
50% interest.
A lot of money. That's a whole driver. That's a whole solid driver. And like I said, not even getting the benefit of having him next season, or even if you only want him for this half of the season, then you have the option to sell him to another team and actually get the money from him. Because if he does well, becomes a reserve, another team's going to want him, and they'll snatch him up. And Red Bull, say even if the team that snatched him up is only willing to pay his base value, Red Bull would have been better getting that money back than just losing it when his contract runs out. But Neb's someone who has shown to be a good TP. He was very good as a Haas TP in his time at KRL. Yeah. He brought Haas from, I think, 8th or 7th to 4th in the overall in 1 season, and he took over. Like, Banjo had a very strong start to the season. He was fighting AlphaTauris in 3rd and 4th for the first 2-3 rounds. But I'll pull up the statistics I saw earlier. Just make sure I get it right.
I think it's the points they've just gone.
No, literally. Where is it? Here it is. Red Bull have 1 win this season, and it's Banjo's China, which I'm personally annoyed about that wasn't me.
I mean, realistically, that was a race. If you remember the highlights, of course, shameless plug, watch the highlights. But that could have been won by a couple of people. I think Tesha B, I think you, and whoever was fighting with him, I think it was Smarty Coast. Alfie, of course, Alfie, yeah. It wasn't a win. It was a win, yeah, great win. Like, I'm really happy for him. He's a good mate. I love him. But it could have been won by a lot of people. It was close. And the only win they've had.
Yeah, they're 9th in wins. Ferrari have 8, McLaren have 6, Haas have 6, Mercedes have 3.
Haas are can't wait to talk about them. They're cricking.
Alfa Romeo have 2, Ferrari have 2, Williams have 2, Aston have 2, Red Bull 1, Alpine 0. I mean, oof.
And I think that something that Red Bull should have learned, and I'm going to talk about Aston Martin, who are currently in the most debt, 76 mil. I can't blame them for it because it is because of Boom Boy leaving, and it's not like they actively signed him for that short. It's because that was his contract in the previous league, so that's not his fault. But the fact that Boom Boy has left them in debt. They get no benefit from Boom Boy besides the points that he's gained in the first half of the season, and they're now left with a seat and a lot of money owed. Red Bull should have learned from that and seen, okay, Aston Martin are arguably in one of the worst situations of any team. Let's not do what they do. And no, they've drawn and copied. They've traced what they've done, and they're aiming to do the same thing next season. And that's a worrying thing for a team that had a lot of potential. There's a lot of good drivers, and this is what I've been saying as well the whole way through since we've been recording. Small teams, if they have a good driver, they'll just get nabbed unless you can prove to them they should stay in this team. Pistol Pizza has been performing very, very well this season. And the worry is, and I know that they've got a lot of good drivers. I'm focusing on him because Pistol Pete's been doing very well. Couple of avoidable incidents, but he has been doing well. If he gets nabbed, Red Bull are in an even worse position than they were before. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because his contract runs out the end of this season. So so it's not even like he'll be nabbed. He'll just be bought. It wouldn't even be nabbing because he won't belong to them anymore. They're in a pickle. They're in a pickle.